When Tupac sang California, we felt it and we saw that California had this spark that could not be dimmed. Now California is something else. Homelessness, killings, price hikes, and even protests. It feels too much for Californians. And in this video, I will talk about the broken economy of living in California.
What was once largely confined to the city's notorious Skid Row can now be seen all across Los Angeles. Hundreds of homeless encampments have sprung up, including this one in the shadow of City Hall.
Something is off with California. California looks like a boom from the outside. Glittering tech campuses, vineyards, and $10 billion movie studios. Up close, it can feel like walking through a house that's worth $1 million and is quietly falling apart. The numbers show a place with massive wealth and a massive cost, but the gap between the two is what's breaking everyday life for millions. Once you have woken up from your nightmare, you will see that the typical California household brings in about $95,500 a year, a figure that sounds healthy compared with many states. Then you will have to wait until you distribute that same money for housing, food, healthcare, and transportation. Once you are done with your distribution, reality check will hit you hard. Many median incomes cannot keep up with the pace of local prices in places where most jobs are concentrated. This alone has pushed middle-class life to the margins. This California situationship is indeed hitting many people hard.
I mean, you always hear those anecdotal stories where, you used to be able to buy, a can of Coca-Cola for a nickel. Those times are long gone. And I mean, Pew Research data shows that the size of the middle class has actually been shrinking steadily since the 1970s and at a faster pace than upper-income households have been growing.
Housing the homeless people in such a rapid inflation. Housing is the clearest fault line, and it's the #1 question mark that leaves us stunned. The statewide median home price sits roughly in the mid to high six figures, approaching $884,000 in recent monthly reports, which puts outright ownership out of reach for many first-time buyers. To even get such an amount alone is mouthwatering for many Californians. Anyway, let's continue with our video. High mortgage rates and tight inventory often keeps the market volatile. Some months prices dip, other months they spike. But long-term affordability keeps worsening for anyone who isn't already sitting on home equity. Renters feel this squeeze acutely. Average asking rents across California are well above the national average, which comes in the price of thousands of dollars per month in many metro areas. Which of course means that a single rent payment can consume a huge share of a typical paycheck. When rent eats up to 40 to 60% of monthly income, which is not uncommon in big cities, people have less to spend on health, savings, childcare, or emergency costs. 40 to 60% of your monthly income is an outrageous cost for one side of anyone's expenses. Housing is eating their income, and something has to be changed and done quickly. A heartbreaking corollary is the scale of homelessness. California accounts for a disproportionate share of the nation's unsheltered population. On any given night, tens of thousands of people, which is more than 100,000 statewide by recent counts, lack stable shelter. That reality isn't just tragic, it's expensive. Emergency medical care, shelter programs, lost labor, and reduced productivity all shift costs onto municipalities and taxpayers, while the human toll grows. I want to say this economic fragility is not in California alone. But when you have everything it takes to solve the problem, then the government in power should be questioned. Inflation has settled from its 2022 highs, but in big California metros, essential costs like the housing-adjacent expenses, food and services, have continued to climb faster than wages in many sectors. The way inflation is rising in California is unfortunately alarming. Regional consumer price indices show persistent, meaningful increases over 12-month windows in major urban areas, which compounds the affordability problem for families not in the highest-paid industries. Minimum wage increases, which California's floor rose to $16.50 per hour in 2025, helps at times. But they're not a silver bullet when a single-bedroom apartment in many cities can approach or exceed what a full-time minimum wage earner brings home. The math simply doesn't line up in many counties. good for short-term relief, insufficient for long-term stability. I know that the $16.50 is quite high, but if you receive such amount in California and not in other states, you will have to come to your senses that that money is peanut in the eyes of the Californians.
New data indicates San Francisco's reputation for sky-high rents is well-deserved. A new report from Apartment List shows rents in San Francisco have shot up 11.5% over this time last year, and about 1.25% in just the last month. That puts the average two-bedroom rental in the city at a little more than $3,600 per month. Newer residents of the city say what they've seen backs up those high prices.
The tech boom and its shadow. Tech created enormous wealth in places like Silicon Valley and San Francisco, but recent years brought another dynamic. Restructuring, AI, and waves of layoffs. High-paying tech jobs elevated local housing markets and service wages, but they also created dependence on a single sector. When tech contracts has a ripple effects on landlords, retailers, and the small businesses, that will indefinitely destroy tech workers' spending. Let me show you the blueprint of the result. High-cost living remains even when the job market cools, and those left behind have fewer options but to pay up or go homeless within months. The inflation space in California is crazy and dreadful and a little bit scary. You can't understand California's broken economy without zoning and land use policy. Much of the state restricts dense housing construction through permitting rules, local opposition, and long lead times, which limits supply where demand is high. The result is definitely part of the affordability problems in coastal metros while inland regions lag in jobs and wages. If you then decide to add wildfire risk and insurance costs in many counties, the cost of living mathematics will just eventually get even messier. Like I said earlier, it is dreadful to watch and leave by if you understand what I mean by that. State-level policies, from taxes to tenant protections to infrastructure investments, can help, but implementation is another topic on its own. Rather than a single villain, the problem stems from the grassroots, which includes decades of policy choices, market incentives, and geographic constraints interacting with national economic shifts. So now, let's just peep into the everyday consequences if you don't mind at all. What does this look like on the ground? Number 1. I have noticed that parents delay in having children because they can't afford daycare plus rent, which is unfortunately crawling into many households. Number 2. Young professionals commuting for 2-hour journeys to afford rent is another chaos on its own. Number 3. Longtime residents are displaced from neighborhoods they helped build. Number 4. Small business owners are juggling rising rents and falling foot traffic. And the last one. The California dream becomes a juggling act of trade-offs where stability is always one paycheck or one medical bill away from evaporating. You see that all the things mentioned not too long ago are piling up in many homes. These situations are performing more harm than good. A realistic hope. California's economy isn't irreparably broken. It's mismatched. Wealth and resources exist here at a scale most places would envy, but they are disconnected from the people who do the state's everyday work. But they can stop the slow unraveling that turns opportunity into instability and make living in California something sustainable again for more than just the lucky few.
Tonight, they're the images alarming Californians. In LA, the homeless on places like the Hollywood Walk of Fame and along the iconic Venice Boardwalk.